Good morning and welcome. And for this meditation, I'd like to offer a simile. Uh, Maybe some of you have had this occasion to, maybe when you were young, to learn to ride a bicycle. And sometimes people learn to ride a bicycle with training wheels. And imagine that you are accustoming yourself, getting used to riding a bicycle with big, solid training wheels, maybe 4 of them, 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and so you're really stable. And it's great to ride a bicycle. It feels wonderful. But then you're afraid of taking the training wheels off because then gravity will have its chance on you, and gravity is dangerous, and how are you going to be able to manage on your own? And so then the attachment to the security of the wheels is quite strong. Can't imagine anything else. But then the training wheels go off, and it's hard to ride because the way that we participate with gravity is confused, and we don't know how. And we're very strongly identified as someone who's under the sway of gravity, and it's unimaginable how we can be free of gravity. And then slowly we get the hang of keeping the balance as we pedal the bike, and then at some point just suddenly feel free. And in a certain way, we're still under the influence of gravity, but we've learned how to manage, how to pedal, have the right speed, how to stay balanced, and it feels like now we're free. Now bicycling can just be like a free thing, and it feels so delightful, and within time you can even bike without holding the handlebar and be upright, and it just feels so wonderful. And now in a certain kind of way, we're no longer preoccupied by gravity. We don't identify ourselves as someone who is under the sway of gravity, or someone who is a victim of gravity, or someone who's incapable of responding, dealing with gravity. The sense of self is so caught up in this idea of gravity that it's impossible to be free of it. But at some point, the pedaling and the movement of the bike, we now are in a certain way free of gravity. We can go about on the bicycle without having any concern about it, and no conscious involvement. And there's no identification with it. There's no being caught, or gravity is no longer a sticky thing for us. We're unstuck from gravity. So, and that's similarly the same thing with awareness, with mindfulness, with our capacity to know what's happening, to clearly recognize it, the capacity to sense what's happening without being entangled with what is known or entangled with what we sense. There's a freedom that can come when mindfulness, awareness, is no longer caught in the gravity of a stickiness of attachments, of identification, of me and mine. I can and can't, and it's unimaginable to imagine a life that is not using training wheels, and unimaginable to use a life where we're not stuck to and entangled with our emotions or our beliefs or our thoughts. But it is possible. It is possible to think, to have emotions, just like there's always gravity. And there's a feeling of non-stickiness, a feeling of like, oh, this is freedom. I can go about now with these things, but I'm not pulled down. I'm not pulled into them. I'm not caught in them. They don't define me. There's a freedom of moving about. This is the possibility with awareness, a clarity of seeing, clarity of knowing, in the clear knowing of what's happening in the moment, in the intimate sensing without any identification. There we find our freedom. And with this, It's not about putting on new training wheels. It's not about getting, a bicycle with much thicker wheels, getting a tricycle. It's not about what bicycle you have even, but rather it's learning to be free and riding it, learning how to balance and all that. So the freedom that comes with mindfulness is not about the experience we're having. It's not like having a special experience, but rather, no matter what's happening, we know how to ride the bike. We know how to be free. We know how to be present, know clearly, see clearly, feel clearly, without being entangled with what is known, felt, or seen. So this becomes particularly useful and very important when we have challenges. Challenges in meditation with our own mind, our own heart, our own body, that our mind, body, and heart are not behaving the way we want, that we don't have to change necessarily what's happening, but we can find our freedom with it. We're not going to do away with gravity, but we are going to find our freedom with it. And so some people are expecting meditation and wanting meditation to be really pleasant and wonderful, deep calm and peace. Of course, that's important. That's a part of it. But that's not how freedom is found. Freedom is found no matter what the experience is, that it's known in this free way. So with that long introduction, we'll start. So to assume a meditation posture that for you, regardless of your posture, standing, sitting, walking, or lying down, somehow or other, represents a posture of being free, a posture of being somehow in a dignified way, independent, even maybe in certain kind of mindfulness way, self-reliant, adjusting your posture, maybe so the chest is a little bit more open. Maybe sitting up straighter, or adjusting the body with pillows in such a way that the belly is relaxed and has a chance to relax. Gently close your eyes. And now to just start directly. Notice in your way, your experience, how you are. And not how you are in the abstract, but what in detail, specifically, what are the direct experiences that are happening for you that make up how you are here and now? What are the sensations of the body, the mind, the heart that contribute to the more abstract ways that we say how we are? How do you experience yourself now? And are you caught in that? That's sticky for you? Are you pulled into it and reacting to it, or believing it, or prioritizing something, or pulling back, or judging? Can you know what's happening for you right now? And find a way to know, to recognize, that feels free of what is known. like you would hear an innocuous sound in the distance. And it's clear that you're not involved in the sound or judging it or reacting to it. It's just a sound that has nothing to do with you, and you're free of it. Not caught by it. It's not sticky. Or you're seeing something in the environment that's neither appealing nor threatening, neither yours nor anybody else's. Maybe a cloud in the sky. An unthreatening cloud floating in the sky. And the seeing of the cloud, you're free of the cloud. No stickiness. And so, to center yourself on your breathing, and see, feel, know the sensations of the body as you breathe. Is there in fact some stickiness for you in experiencing breathing? For you, what way can you begin feeling freedom from the experience of breathing while attending to it? Perhaps taking a little time to relax your body. Maybe every time you exhale, the tenser the body, the more likely we are to identify or be sticking to something. Relaxing the mind, the thinking mind. Softening in the heart center. Gently, quietly, peacefully, like you're slowly pedaling a bicycle with freedom and ease. Let each moment of knowing, recognition, being aware, be a little push of the pedal that keeps you free from whatever is known. Know what's happening while moving on with awareness. Know while letting the river of experience flow through you. Knowing mindfulness, not sticking to anything. you can feel a quality of calmness or stillness from these minutes of meditation, or a quietness relative to how meditation started for you. Or maybe with the exhale, you can relax into a calm or quiet or stillness. And without making extra effort, can you notice some sense of knowing, being aware, that is not sticky, doesn't stick to what is known or what we're aware of. Awareness is free to move on, or to allow things to change and move on. Available for whatever is new in this river of time, letting everything flow. And may it be that our ability to be present with no entanglement, no for or against, no stickiness, allows our care and love, respect for others, to be present when we're with others. May whatever freedom we discover in knowing freely be like an open door through which our goodwill can flow. May this practice that we do support us to meet the world with goodwill, wishing others happiness, safety, peace, and freedom. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free. And may our goodwill support that possibility. Thank you. So hello and welcome to this third talk on the hindrances. The hindrances are 5 kind of strategies that our inner life has to to respond to challenges in unhelpful ways. And maybe in some ways life is always has some challenges. And so how we respond to them is part of the nature of this practice of ours. And I think it's important not to think of mindfulness practice about kind of floating on a cloud of bliss and joy and just being just peaceful and have and happy ever after. A more valuable way of understanding mindfulness practice is that we are actually learning how to be present in an effective way, in a wholesome way, with the challenges that life brings, that they always bring. And so one of the ways to do that is to understand the unhelpful ways in which we respond to challenges. And the 5 hindrances are such things. So sometimes we respond with uncertainty and confusion and running around not being able to make decisions. Sometimes we respond with agitation, restlessness, maybe with regrets and remorse about who we are, what's happening, how we're showing up, what happened in the past. Sometimes which is the topic for today, is that somehow we freeze up, we shut down, we go to sleep in some way, so we're not having to deal with the challenges that come. And then for the next 2 days, next day is sometimes we respond with hostility, with aversion, with ill will, with blame, with complaining, with hostility. And then finally, on Friday, we respond with desires of different types. Sensual desires, avaricious desires, desires of greed. We want something to fill us, to make us feel good, to get away from what's difficult and challenging, and we want to substitute it with something that makes us kind of have pleasure, and so this engagement with desire, and some of these patterns can be pervasive in a person's life. Some people they can recognize that one of these is their calling card, and this is where they keep falling back to. So part of mindfulness practice is become wise about recognizing these hindrances. So a Vipassana student, insight student, should really learn these well and listen to Dharma talks, study them, think about them, read about them. I have a whole little book called Unhindered that you can, has my essays about them, and it might give you a kind of a clear sense of how they work for you to read something like my book. And so for today, it's a topic that's usually called sloth and torpor. And for many of us, the word sloth as a quality of lethargy or something is not really something that we use that word in English much, though most of us might know what it means. And but when I studied the Pali for it, the ancient language, the dictionary says that it can mean rigidity, and I think that works a little bit better because sloth and torpor are a little bit too closely connected, too similar. But to have something a little bit wider that talks to some very common human reaction to somehow to freeze, to shut down, to get rigid, to get really tight and contracted in situations, maybe from fear. I think it expands the meaning of this third hindrance in a way I think that's useful for many people. And this is where we feel overwhelmed or feel excessively challenged by what goes on in life. So there's some mechanism of shutting down. It's not ordinary tiredness when they talk about torpor, but it's a kind of shutting down and giving up, or the system gets so tired, so dull, so yeah, kind of like mud in the mind, and it's hard to get through it, um, and so things don't seem very clear, and there's a vagueness, and there's um, not much energy to apply ourselves, and a kind of giving up sometimes of our engagement with things. That kind of makes things dull and shut down. Sometimes they can be quite intense. If there's a lot of fear or a lot of anger, or the emotional response we have is just so strong that the other 4 hindrances are just like really energized, or that something shuts down again. Something we don't want to pay attention. There's a resistance. There's a, we're resisting what's happening. We're bored because we don't want to pay attention. We don't like what's happening. So there's a shutting down again. So to pay attention to this movement of the drop of engagement, the drop of energy, the drop of clarity is an important part of this practice. Notice how that hinders us, how this gets in the way of clarity, gets in the way of understanding what is wholesome. And it's said that this third hindrance, sloth and torpor, or rigidity and torpor, is unhealthy, is a hindrance, is an unwholesome movement. And it's possible to feel that. It feels there's a dulling, there's a shutting down, there's a unwillingness, there's a not engaged in understanding or reflecting or studying the situation, being curious and interested in it. And it can feel this, very uncomfortable to be in our own skin when sloth and torpor is present, in a very different way than just simply tired or exhausted or something. And so, as uncomfortable it is to feel this, if there is this rigidity and torpor, the practice of mindfulness is to turn around and really see it, to become the expert on boredom, the expert on resistance, the expert on shutting down, the expert on how we avoid and deflect, how we get dull, and how we can change that, how we can become different. And I think that the wisest way of doing that is to understand that the unhealthy ways in which we're responding to what's happening around us, what's happening in our life. Some forms of depression are kind of this particular hindrance. It's a kind of shutting down, a giving up, where the energy disappears and we don't feel any vitality and inspiration, and there can be a sinking into that. So to be mindful of that can be very hard if we are identified with it, if we believe, if we define ourselves by it, if we are invested into the strategy of rigidity and torpor, and we're so part of it that there's so much stickiness between us and it that it's unimaginable that we could be any different. But in fact we can. And one of the things we can cultivate, and what we want to develop here, is not just mindfulness, not just being aware of what's happening, but one step further, we want to discover the way of being aware, the way of knowing, where we are independent from what is known. That we're able to see into the seeing, to understand how seeing can be free of what is seen. The solution, in a sense, the liberation we're looking for in Buddhism, is not in what we seek, but how we seek. Not in what we know, but how we know. Of course we have to know, but how we know, how we feel, how we hear. And so if we have sloth and torpor, rigidity, and this dullness, is how we know it is important. And to learn how to awaken, how to rise up with a sharpness or a clarity of attention, to bring energy into the mindfulness, into the knowing. So we begin to be free of what is known. This clarity opens up. The image of a lotus that's growing in muddy water, but then when it's going to flower, the lotus flower comes out of the muddy water and is untouched by the mud, and it's clear. So as we get out of the muddy water of sloth and torpor, the awareness becomes somehow this beautiful flower that's untouched, while we know we have sloth and torpor, which begins to decrease its influence on us. So the traditional discussion about letting go of sloth and torpor, and it's possible sometimes to just let go of it, when we clearly know how to see it. We've learned to recognize its ins and outs and how it works. We see it as an activity of the mind. We're doing something. We're picking up this strategy. And so it's possible when we know it well enough to see that it's possible to put it down, to let it go. So the Buddha said, having let go of rigidity and torpor, one dwells without rigidity and torpor, mindful with clear comprehension and consciously seeing. Doing this, one cleanses the mind of rigidity and torpor. So they have cleansing the mind. So here the emphasis to overcome this sloth and torpor, rigidity and dullness, boredom and shutting down, is to cultivate these attentional qualities of mindfulness, clear comprehension, clear recognition of what's happening, and conscious seeing. So not just seeing, but seeing with purpose, or seeing with intention, or seeing with knowing that we're seeing, conscious seeing, knowing we're seeing. And it's possible to see something, be so involved with it, we don't really know that we're seeing, because that's kind of taken for granted. We're so caught up in what we want or what we don't want that that we don't notice that our eyes are popping out of their eye sockets. And so, but to see consciously means to be aware of the quality, the characteristics, the healthiness, the wholesomeness of how we see. And so, or how we know, how we sense. So it's in the attentional faculties that we have, that we bring attention, and all the different faculties of attention we have, hearing, seeing, smelling, touching, tasting, everything, all the sense doors in the body, and in the mind's eye, where we know and see what's going on internally with us, with the mind. All these attentional faculties can be awakened, can be engaged without any stickiness, without any invocation with the challenges that we have. And that's my suggestion for you today, is certainly become aware of how sloth and torpor, shutting down, rigidity, and dullness come into play for you in different points. You're going to watch your mind. It's fascinating to watch, like at a meeting or something, when your mind starts to drift off, when your mind starts shutting down, when you get sleepy or dull, and when it picks up again. What is happening in the room? What's happening in the talking? What's happening in yourself? And you can watch sometimes the cycles and rhythms of being clear and present and being dull and not really paying attention. But more important, see what you can learn about being present, being with attention, where whatever form of attention you're using, whatever mindfulness you have, is independent of what is known, that you find your freedom in it. And like you find your freedom from gravity when you learn to be skilled at riding a bicycle. So thank you very much. And so tomorrow and Friday, I'm traveling tomorrow, and so Kim Allen, one of the wonderful teachers here at IMC, will finish this series, and she'll do ill will and sensual desire for the next 2 days, and I think it'll be wonderful, and I think wonderful kind of perspective that I'm sure Kim is a very thoughtful, well-practiced person, and I'd be curious, very curious to know how she picks this up and offers her take on all this. So thank you, Kim, if you're listening, and I'll be gone for a few weeks. I'm teaching a couple of retreats, and look forward to being back near the end of October. And thank you very much.